But it was here that she also began her affair with a student in her 6th grade class.
The beautiful school teacher whose sentencing last week shocked America. Now, the student she had an affair with.
The boy was 13, just a year older than Mary Kay's eldest son.
The 14-year-old boy who had a baby with his teacher. It's a scandal that shocked America.
Incredibly, Mary Kay brought the boy to her home to have sex, the same home she shared with her husband and 4 children. What are your feelings for Mary Kay now?
I love her. I love her with all my heart.
The Mary Kay Letourneau story is perhaps the most notorious tale of teacher-student indiscretion ever told. While Mrs. Letourneau was certainly not the first female teacher to be caught having inappropriate contact with a student, the attention the case received and the uproar it caused was unprecedented at the time. In the following years, salacious stories like this one became more and more common as the 20th century gave way to the 21st, and as social media and smartphones made it easier for pupils and educators to communicate discreetly. Letourneau's scandalous forbidden relationship gained worldwide headlines when it came to light in the year 1997. By then, she was already several months pregnant by her 13-year-old lover. She was convicted of child rape and ultimately served 7.5 years in prison for her crime. In the intervening years, the woman would give birth to not 1, but 2 children fathered by the boy, and after spending years in prison, she reunited with the young man now that he was a legal adult, married him, and raised their 2 young daughters with him. Public interest in the sensational story endured over the years, and as the couple divorced in the year 2017, after they'd been married for more than 10 years. Mary Kay Letourneau died of colon cancer in the year 2020 after more than 2 decades of prurient public obsession with the story of her dysfunctional relationship with Vili Fualaau. The following narrative is based on publicly available reporting as of today regarding the turbulent lives of Mary Kay Letourneau and Vili Fualaau. In the year 1995, 34-year-old Mary Kay Letourneau was a married mother of 4 children. She and her husband, 35-year-old Steve Letourneau, had been married for 10 years. The couple's marriage had been strained from the beginning. They struggled to keep up with the expenses of feeding and raising the kids and maintaining their cluttered home. They argued on the regular over finances and Steve's repeated infidelities. The couple lived in Des Moines, Washington. Des Moines is a suburban city of about 36,000 people just south of Seattle. At the time, Mary was a teacher at Shorewood Elementary, which is located in a small city not far from where her family resided. That year, Mary got a promotion and would now be teaching 5th and 6th graders, whereas she had been teaching 2nd grade. One of her students that fall was a 12-year-old boy named Vili Fualaau. That's Vili, spelled V as in victory, I-L-I. Mrs. Letourneau was familiar with the kid. She had taught him when he was in the 2nd grade. She had taken an interest in him back then after noticing that he was a gifted artist. She took it upon herself to encourage him and cultivate his talents. She stayed in contact with the boy in the following years, and when he became her student again, the two became closer. To the frustration of her husband, Vili gradually became a regular guest at the Letourneau home that school year.
If any of you can come over this weekend to help me finish it, that would be great.
I can.
Oh, thank you, Vili.
Vili and his teacher were almost inseparable, and the boy became friends with Mary's kids. That school year would be a difficult one for Mrs. Letourneau because of devastating personal ordeals that befell her. In October, she learned that her father, who she adored, had terminal cancer. A few months later, in January of 1996, she suffered a miscarriage that left her on the brink of a nervous breakdown.
Yo, Letourneau is hot. I walked by her class the other day. She was bent over and... Whew.
Vili Fualaau's upbringing was highly dysfunctional, apparently. He was from a poor neighborhood called White Center. He hardly knew his father, who spent much of his life behind bars. The man had 18 children by 5 different women. Vili's mother, who worked in a bakery, was present, but her son has described his home life at the time as full of noise and violence. In describing the toxic environment in which he grew up, Vili once mentioned that as a young child, he'd watch adult movies with his great-grandfather. He's described his life at the time as very cold and said that he had always been around a lot of cold people. Vili had a powerful crush on his teacher. The boy's mother became a bit suspicious, considering the amount of time he was spending with the woman. The concerned mother asked the youngster once what was going on. Vili told his mother that nothing was happening. The woman had trust in Mrs. Letourneau. They were both God-fearing, church-going women who would sometimes attend services together. During the course of the school year, several school officials noticed the unusually tight bond the teacher seemed to share with the student. In one incident that went unreported, school employees saw Vili driving Mrs. Letourneau's van in the school parking lot. At around the same time, the school custodian found Mary and Vili in the school bathroom with the lights turned off. The teacher told the custodian that Fualaau was having an attitude problem that she wanted to discuss with him in private. The custodian told his supervisor about the odd event, but neither reported it to the school principal. On another occasion, a fellow teacher found the pair slow dancing in front of other students. Mrs. Letourneau explained to the teacher that she had danced with all of her pupils in preparation for an upcoming Valentine's Day event. Vili has said that he made a bet with a classmate that he could bed Miss Letourneau. He pursued the teacher persistently, and she was resistant at first apparently. But by that summer, the relationship had turned sexual. It's not clear when exactly the escalation occurred. Vili has said that he did not become intimate with his teacher until after his 6th grade year. Since giving that account, however, he changed his story and said that he first received oral sex from the woman while he was still a student in her classroom. He said that on the day after the encounter, he and the teacher passed notes in class concerning the incident. One of Mary's colleagues has said that the woman once excused herself from a staff meeting to counsel a troubled student, and when she returned, she smelled of sex. After the abuse was discovered, and before Letourneau was sentenced for her crimes, authorities interviewed the illegitimate sexual partners, and they described how their first sexual encounter unfolded. Vili had written a poem that implied he wanted to make love to Mrs. Letourneau, and that he had a plan for their next home visit. Sitting in the teacher's car, the boy kissed the woman. She described it as a romantic sort of kiss. Mary believed that they could have the kiss and nothing more would come of it, apparently. The adolescent stayed overnight at her house once more when the two of them fell asleep in their respective chairs after a long talk. Vili asked her to come and sit next to him. Mary did so. He held her, and she could feel that the boy was aroused. She then made the decision to relieve him of that energy. She performed oral sex on him, she said, so that he would not have those feelings. The kid climaxed, then held the woman. Then they lay on the couch together. Vili lay on top of his teacher, pushing himself against her. By this time, Mrs. Letourneau was sexually aroused, and she allowed the intercourse to happen. According to Mary, the boy was obviously experienced and knew what he was doing.
I felt that I very much needed the relationship. I often felt that he needed the relationship.
On June 18th of 1996, Mary and Vili were caught together under suspicious circumstances in a parked car. When police approached the vehicle in a marina parking lot, they saw Letourneau climbing into the front seat and Fualaau was pretending to be asleep in the back. The police asked if any touching had taken place. The boy said that nothing had happened, and Letourneau lied about his age, saying he was 18. She said that the kid was a family friend who was spending the night at her home. The cops were suspicious. They could tell that the kid was far younger than 18. The cops took the couple to the station and called Vili's mother. Vili's mother said that the boy was fine if he was with Mary. Police released Mary and Vili and investigated no further. Mrs. Letourneau would continue to engage in sexual acts with the boy for several months, mostly at her home or in her car. Vili has said that he and Mrs. Letourneau had sexual contact anywhere from 300 to 400 times by the time their secret was revealed. In the fall of 1996, Vili enrolled at Cascade Middle School, but he would return to Shorewood Elementary to assist Mrs. Letourneau with class projects. Left alone late in the evenings, they had sex 3 times at the school.
Had sex
In the gymnasium,
in the gym,
in the woman's bathroom,
girls' bathroom,
and in her classroom.
in the classroom.
But before that autumn had even arrived, Mary was already with child, and Vili was the father. By February of 1997, Mary was almost 6 months pregnant. She had informed her husband and pretended that the baby was his.
So I had sex with Steve last night, just like we talked about.
And I can't believe you went through with it.
I had to. If he thinks it's his baby, it'll buy us more time until I can figure out what to do.
She was madly in love with the baby-faced boy and was excited about the pregnancy. She saw it as a sign that she and Vili were meant to be, as confirmation of the legitimacy of their shameful affair. Around that time, the atmosphere in the Letourneau home became highly combustible. The possibility of losing the house had become a very real possibility due to the family's decrepit finances. Mary was pregnant, and Steve was unhappy with the constant presence of this young whippersnapper of which his wife was so fond. Mary knew that eventually the truth as to the father of her unborn child would be revealed, as she expected that the new baby would have dark skin and curly hair. Steve was suspicious of Mary and Vili. He knew something was not quite right. His suspicions would be confirmed when he discovered love letters his wife had written to her runt lover. Steve confronted his wife. He wanted her to have an abortion. He discussed the matter with relatives of his. One of his cousins took it upon theirself to report the situation to the school administration at Shorewood Elementary. On February 26th, police showed up at the school and arrested Mary. She would be charged with second-degree child rape. Soon after, she would be released on bail.
Well, the truth is, at the time, I did have a crush on her, and I was out front with her, told her everything, all my feelings I had about her. And we just fell in love sometimes. Shouldn't be punished for being in love with me.
She really believed she had committed no crime, but we were in love. It's love. I didn't make him do anything. If anything, he was wanting it. He was pushing for it. We were in love. How can it be a crime? And I had to repeat many times and in different ways why it's a crime.
This is Dave Gerke, the lawyer who represented Mary in the rape case. He said that the first thing Mary asked him when they began working together was whether he thought of her as a pervert or not. He told her that he didn't think of her that way. In a lot of cultures, he told her, and in a lot of different eras, relationships like hers and Vili's were completely normal, legal, and encouraged. Even in our own country today, it's treated so differently, he told her. On May 23rd, Mary gave birth to a baby girl who was named Audrey. In August, Mary pleaded guilty to child rape.
I did something that I had no right to do, morally or legally. It was wrong, and I am sorry. Please help me. Help us all.
In November, she was sentenced to 7.5 years in prison. Almost all of that sentence was suspended, and the disgraced teacher would initially spend just 3 months in jail. Her sentence also included 3 years of probation upon her release, and she was ordered to attend a treatment program and to have no further contact with the father of her child. She was released in January of 1998. Her husband, Steve, would eventually be granted a divorce and custody of their 4 children, with whom he would pack up and move back to his hometown of Anchorage, Alaska. On February 3rd of 1998, just weeks after Mary's release, at 2:40 in the morning, police found her and Vili together in a parked car with steamed-up windows. The cops found $6,200 in cash in the car, along with passports and receipts for $850 in clothing purchases. Authorities theorized that the pair had intended to flee the country. Mary was placed under arrest, and 3 days later, on February 6th, she was ordered to complete her 7.5-year prison sentence.
The original sentence that I imposed not long ago of 89 months is imposed.
But there was another bombshell. Mary was pregnant again with Vili's second child.
But during the few short weeks that she was free on parole, it would be revealed that Mary had gotten pregnant once again by her teenage sweetheart. In October, the incarcerated former teacher gave birth to another daughter. This one was named Georgia. The state promptly took custody of the girl and eventually placed her in the care of Vili's mother.
It is true it is real, and it was love, and it is love. Is it the kind of love, is there any space for that in our society? Maybe not.
Mary was somehow able to send letters to Vili while she was locked away. This shouldn't have been the case, as she was prohibited from having communication with the boy, and her incoming and outgoing mail was supposed to be monitored by jail staff. In one of the letters, Mary threatens to castrate the boy if she finds out that he's been seeing other females. Mary spent months in solitary confinement after the letters were discovered and reported. Young Vili was ill-equipped to deal with all of the pressure of being the teenage father of two and of the girl's mother's incarceration and the continued media attention. He struggled with depression and attempted suicide in 1999, the year following Mary's imprisonment. He had entered counseling and was back in school, but found himself suspended on more than one occasion for truancy and for smoking. One evening in the year 2000, 16-year-old Vili and his brother had a problem with another kid. The situation resulted in Vili's arrest for second-degree robbery. He pleaded guilty in the case and was sentenced to probation and community service. Eventually, he dropped out of high school. For years, he struggled with alcohol abuse. His mother took responsibility for raising the boy's two daughters, while he assisted where he could. In 2002, the mother and son sued Highline School District, of which Shorewood Elementary is a part, for negligence, saying that the school should have recognized that the boy was being abused. The mother and son sought $1 million in damages. Before the proceedings began, however, Vili, who had turned 17 by that time, attempted to remove himself from the case, saying that he planned on marrying the disgraced teacher after he turned 18. He said that the woman had pride in her city and in Shorewood Elementary, and that he did not want to hurt the woman by taking part in the lawsuit. In April of 2002, a jury found the school district and the city not liable, and the case was dismissed. Despite the lawsuit, Vili's mother had said long before that she had forgiven Mary for what she did to her son. Vili Fualaau said during Mary's sentencing hearing in November of 1997 that, quote, "Mary is not a bad person. She's just a human being who made a terrible mistake," unquote. She asked the court not to sentence the woman to prison time, saying that Mary had been punished enough for her mistake. Interestingly, in 1997, after all of the controversy captured interest around the globe, Vili and Suna secured media contracts including a book deal from a French publisher, which in total paid somewhere in the low six figures. But by the time of this 2002 Seattle Times article, the money was almost all spent, save for a fraction that had been put aside in a college fund for Georgia and Audrey.
In my mind, he wasn't an age. I think when we have close relationships with people, we value the relationship for completely outside of what someone's age is.
In August of 2004, Mary Kay Letourneau was released from prison after serving the remainder of her 7.5-year prison sentence. Vili immediately requested that the court revoke the no-contact order against Mary so that the two could reunite. 3 days later, a judge granted Vili's request. Less than a year later, the couple's cursed relationship was officially certified when Mary and Vili wedded on May 20th of the year 2005.
Vili, to be my constant best friend.
About 250 guests witnessed the nuptials, which occurred at a Washington winery. Mary was then 43 years old. At 22 years of age, Vili was approximately 21 years his new wife's junior. Their two daughters, 7-year-old Audrey and 6-year-old Georgia, served as flower girls during the ceremony. 2 of Mary's children from her first marriage were in attendance. The couple celebrated 10 years of marriage in May of 2015, but dealt with their share of struggles over the years. As Vili had dropped out of high school while Mary was in prison, and Mary's teaching career was permanently terminated, the pair often had difficulty making ends meet. At some point, Mary's driver's license was suspended for failure to appear in court and a string of unpaid traffic tickets. Then in January of 2013, she was arrested for driving without a license. The cash-strapped couple had to pay a bail bondsman $5,000 to secure her release. While Vili was a customer service associate at a Lowe's home improvement store, he had his wages garnished over money owed to the city of SeaTac. Over the years, he supplemented his income by working as a DJ. Around the year 2009, spinning under the name DJ Headline, he and Mary hosted a series of Hot for Teacher nights at a local bar, apparently exploiting their infamous story. Mary worked for at least a time as a legal assistant. In May of 2017, Vili filed for legal separation from his wife of 12 years. He and Mary attempted to reconcile multiple times over the course of the next few years, but the proceedings moved forward, and in late 2019, their divorce was finalized. But even after the split, the two continued to live together for a time and remained active in the lives of their two daughters. Also following the separation, Vili began to gain some perspective regarding his relationship with Mary and how it began. After the split, he started really going over things in his mind, the source said, just thinking about how they met and how that affected how they interacted as adults. He was never really a full-fledged partner. He was always secondary. He sees that now. It shouldn't surprise anyone, but he feels that for the first time he's being like a real grown adult. That feels good for him. As the divorce proceedings played out, in February of 2018, Vili was arrested for DUI. By the year 2020, Vili had moved to California. He was living there when he received word from his ex-wife that she wasn't feeling well. Vili came back to Washington to be with his ailing ex-wife. Soon she was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic colon cancer. In July of 2020, Mary Kay Letourneau would succumb to the disease. She had been diagnosed just 6 months prior. She was 58 years old. Vili was by her side, giving her 24-hour care during her final days. Mary had willed her estate to her 37-year-old ex-husband.
She believed that a miracle was going to happen and that somehow she was going to be healed and, it was going to go away.
During an interview conducted after Mary's death, Vili Fualaau talked about the time he spent with her during the last days and weeks of her life.
They did a CT scan on her. They found that the cancer had spread, to her spine and to her brain. And the very last weeks of her life, she started to realize that she was going to go. The last day was sort of a sense of relief that she wasn't in pain anymore, but also really devastating. Preparing myself mentally for that was the hardest part, and still to this day, everything feels really unreal.
Mary's first ex-husband, Steve Letourneau, moved back to his native Anchorage, Alaska, after parting with Mary following the revelation of her illicit activities. He worked for Alaska Airlines for 30 years. He remarried and had 2 more children in addition to the 4 he fathered with Mary. His and Mary's adult children all found success and happiness. He's never made any public statements regarding his late ex-wife's passing. As Mary saw the end of her life approaching, she wrote numerous letters to friends and family and to people she felt she had wronged. According to one individual who reportedly received one of the letters, Mary begged forgiveness for many misdeeds and expressed remorse about what she had done to Vili when he was a child. She was trying to make her peace, the source said, not only with everyone else, but with herself. She understood on a very deep level that she had really made a mess of her life and the lives of many other people back in 1996. She realized that even though things had turned out relatively good, that she was responsible for a wide swath of destruction by her actions. She apologized to a lot of people for a lot of things. Vili Fualaau's public appearances have been limited in the years since his ex-wife's death. He maintains little to no social media presence, and there is little public information about his present-day life as of the date that I'm posting this video. In late 2022, it was announced on his second daughter Georgia's Instagram page that Mr. Fualaau has become the father of a 3rd new baby girl named Sophia, his 3rd child. Audrey and Georgia also choose to keep their private lives private for the most part, though they do appear on social media from time to time. In September of this year, 2023, Audrey revealed via her Instagram page that her younger sister Georgia was pregnant with her first child. When the boy is born next year, Vili will become a grandfather for the first time at the young age of 40 years old. Thanks once again for tuning in. Thanks for liking, for commenting, and subscribing. I'm trying to make it to 15,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you haven't liked and subscribed already, please go ahead and do so. To all of my longtime viewers and subscribers, I appreciate you guys continuing to come around. Your support is greatly appreciated. I apologize about my absence recently. So much has been going on around here, but just so you know, for the foreseeable future, even if I'm not around for a few weeks, there will always be content coming. I'll always be working on something, and there'll always be something new coming at some point. I'm in the process right now of working with some people to help me produce content on a more regular basis, and that's all I'm going to say about that for now. Once again, thanks to all of you guys for tuning in. Thanks for liking, thanks for commenting, thanks for subscribing. I love all you guys, and I appreciate all of your support. Until the next time, peace.